Grief is an all-encompassing, deeply personal experience, and it will find each one of us at some point in our lives. Because grief is a universal experience, there's a natural tendency to compare one's own grief to someone else's grief. But doing this can be very unproductive and detrimental to the grieving process. Today, we will explore the dangers of grief comparisons. And at the end of the video, I will offer up some suggestions of the only time that I see a grief comparison being helpful. Hello, I'm Jo McRogers, a therapist dedicated to doing grief differently. Welcome to our little piece of YouTube. Grief needs a revolution, so please join our Grievolution. I see the comparison game all the time in my clients' experiences, and I have certainly played it myself when I have been grieving. While it may be natural to compare our grief to others and how we perceive their loss and how they perceive our loss experiences, we simply can't compare grief and loss in the same way that you might be able to compare measurable facts such as height and weight. By its very nature, grief isn't quantifiable or objective. Grief experiences are so subjective. There is what happened to you, and then there is your own unique experience of what happened to you. Your experience of your grief will be driven by many factors. Your relationship with the person who passed, was it loving or stressed? What were you taught about grief as a child? Are you an expressive individual or an internal processor? Do you recharge through solitude and introspection? Or do you recharge, are you more led by others? Is that more your style? These nuances are a core part of how I've designed my online services to help people identify their own unique experience of their own unique loss. This is core grief work. Understanding your grief can help you identify then which tools are going to be most helpful for you. So when we talk about grief comparisons, I'm going to ask you to humor me and let's play a little game. This is the grief tic-tac-toe game. I have identified 9 frequent experiences of grief: anxiety, isolation, sleep disturbance, despair, guilt, numbness, feeling too sensitive, physical illness, and fear. So please take a moment and study this grief grid. And then please share with us in the comments below which tic-tac-toe line most fits your grief today. Please write these 3 descriptors from your line in the comments. And then after that, please identify your source of loss. Is it a person, a death, a relationship, a pet, a diagnosis, financial or housing instability, a sobriety relapse? It can come from so many different sources. Please identify the source. My goal in asking you to participate in this little game is to normalize that regardless of the source, grief is 100% experienced. The grief comparison game is not productive when we are measuring the details of the loss. The more productive path to take is to identify the resulting emotional impacts of the loss. Please take a minute also now to read other people's comments, to know that it is in our experience of the resulting emotions that we can find connection, that we can find empathy, respect, solace, problem solving, and support. The grief comparison statements to be aware of are: they have it worse, so I shouldn't feel so bad. This only serves to diminish the validity of your own grief. And next, I have it worse than you. This usually reflects the need for your grief to be more seen and supported. If you find yourself or others thinking or making statements like these, know that you need to challenge the grief comparison effect. These statements serve no purpose as they are. These statements invite in division, when what we and what our grief needs is to unite and to mend. Now, there have been some instances that I have seen a grief comparison have a productive outcome. they had it worse, or they also experienced, insert the same kind of loss. And this is how they found their way through it. Looking for inspiration is so important. It is difficult to role model what you haven't seen. So seek community, support, insight, and look for role models of those who are willing to do the work and share the struggles and the minute little victories. So if you are doing some comparisons, please make sure it is towards inspiration and role modeling. This is a productive use of a grief comparison. It's the only productive use of a grief comparison. Grief is a quilt of emotions and memories and expressions and connections. No two griefs look alike. Families that are experiencing even the exact same loss, the grief experiences will be very different amongst the members. When my dad died and I was just in my early 20s, I always felt so bad for my sisters who had to support their children through the loss of their grandfather. And it wasn't until years later that I learned that they felt so bad for me because our dad would never get to know any children that I might have. Two very different experiences of the same grief. Theirs was never expressed directly to me. I never expressed mine directly to them. And we had our own unique grief experiences from the same source. So please, unless it is used for inspiration, please do not compare grief. Please remember what I have said in that all grief is 100% experienced. As you make your way to find your own relationship with your own unique grief, I send you kind thoughts, kind words, and a kind heart. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.